big story of the day. Water company bosses will face up to 2 years in prison under new laws coming into force today. That's if they cover up illegal sewage spills.
Well, the Environment Department says that no prison sentences have been handed to water executives since privatisation, despite widespread flouting of the law.
Well, James Wallace is the Chief Executive of River Action, and he joins us now. Good morning, James. This is good news, no? Bosses finally going to be held to account.
Well, it would seem to be good news, but I think, as you've already pointed out, it's only if they withhold evidence. And to me, I think the greater crime of pollution is the one that they should be punished for. So if there's repeated evidence to show that they have willingly and criminally broken the law, that should be enough for a water boss to go to prison, in our view.
Now, James, I understand we didn't measure sewage deposits in rivers we didn't start till around 2010, and the full measurement system wasn't rolled out until 2015, 2016. Since then, has there been any improvement in the amount of sewage that's released, and have the water companies made any significant investments in improving the situation?
Well, no and no to both questions, sadly. This most recent report from the Environment Agency that came out a couple of weeks ago shows about 3.6 million hours of pollution across England and Wales. And often, let's not forget, these are dry spills. This is when it's not raining and therefore illegal discharges. When it comes to the lack of investment, we've also seen during this period of privatisation £64 billion worth of debt accrued by water companies, which they've effectively sold off the assets or leveraged their assets so that they can then give dividends and interest payments to their investors, rather than investing in the problem. So that is why we're seeing this issue. And then let's not forget the lack of regulation. During the past 15 years, we've seen very significant cuts in the Environment Agency's budget by about 70%. So yes, there's more monitoring, but there's not legal enforcement. So bringing it back to the story you've mentioned here, we see, for example, an organisation like Thames Water who have knowingly committed a crime by killing fish in the River Mole in 2017. It took 6 years for prosecution because of things like court time. So that's another issue here to consider. They had to wait 5 years to go to court.
James, how do we fare compared to the rest of Europe when it comes to outflow and sewage spills?
Well, not as well at all by any means. We pay generally more for our water and sewage treatment services as a nation than we see across Europe. And we also see water quality generally much lower. There are some exceptions in remote places where you've got a very high population, a lack of investment. But if you look across Europe as a whole, I'm afraid Britain is bottom of the pile. However, there are better ways of doing it. There is something called the Independent Water Commission that Sir John Cunliffe is undertaking right now. He's going to be reporting at the end of June back to the government with his view on how we can fix this problem. We've asked him, that's River Action and Surfers Against Sewage in partnership, have asked him to consider other ways of financing and governing water companies. And this is a really critical point. If you're always chasing profit and not thinking about investing in your infrastructure, then not surprisingly, you're going to see a decrease in water quality. What we see in Europe are structures where you can have public benefit and environmental outcomes prioritised over profit. And basically that means you have, rather than a privatised system, you have one that is let's think of it as blended. You have not-for-profit, you have municipal oversight and so on. So it means that, yes, where investment's brought in, it makes a fair return. Excuse me. But also, that investment needs to come from benign sources, not just private, and it needs to come from public sources. It needs to come on terms that are looking at water quality and the benefits to customers instead.
James, can you just explain the law as it stands?
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below, and if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
James, can you just explain the law as it stands? Because you said that the illegal discharges of sewage are when it's dry. So do we understand that actually when there's lots of rainfall or flash flooding, the water companies are allowed to discharge sewage if they have no other option?
Well, the term is exceptional circumstances. If it is exceptional, in other words, storm water, very, very heavy, hard to predict rainfall, then yes, they are allowed to do that. But that is not most of the time. Whereas if you look at the statistics that you've mentioned already, then this is the case where you have dry spilling. A dry spill is when there's no rainfall at all, but they're still discharging. And unfortunately, that happens all over the country all the time. It's not just Thames Water, it's all water companies everywhere.
Yeah. Southern Water included, down where I live, down by the coast. James Wallace, thank you very much, Chief Exec of River Action. Miriam, one thing that's never mentioned with this water situation is that immigration. What part does the population explosion have on the pressure on our infrastructure? Well,
certainly that's had an impact in London. But I thought it was really interesting, actually, that if the water companies are focused on having money to pay dividends, then obviously they're going to be less likely to invest in infrastructure. Yeah. Very different way of doing it in Europe.
And what's the figure of completely revamping the infrastructure? You mentioned it earlier.
It's billions and billions and billions, which is why the last government balked at doing it, because essentially that would go on our water bills and that would be unpopular too. But nevertheless, it's going to have to happen at some point.
Yeah, rock and a hard place.
Water company bosses will face up to 2 years in prison under new laws coming into force today. That's if they cover up illegal sewage spills. The Environment Department says that no prison sentences have been handed to water executives since privatisation. That's despite widespread flouting of the law. However, under these new changes, the department says it will act as what they called a powerful deterrent to the companies being part of any illegal activity. Earlier, Environment Secretary Steve Reed told GB News these new laws are just the start.
It's a big step forwards, and of course we've already changed the law to give the regulator the power they need to ban the payment of those unjustified and unfair multi-million pound bonuses. But you see where I'm standing today by the River Lark, just outside Bury, just in the middle of Bury St Edmunds. People are really angry that rivers like this up and down the country have had record levels of pollution and sewage dumped into them, and that happened because regulation and enforcement was so weak and toothless under the previous government.
At GB News, we believe in the power of free speech. We're not afraid to ask the tough questions, challenge the status quo, and give you a voice. While others silence dissent, we champion the truth. By becoming a GB News member, you're not just supporting free speech, you're defending it. Please consider supporting us today. Together, we'll hold the powerful to account and make sure that your voice is always heard. Simply go to gbnews.com/support and stand with us for what matters most.